Welcome, everyone, to the LinkedIn for B2B Growth Show. I'm your host, Michelle J. Raymond, and this week is made for podcasts. This episode is all about your voice is your power. And I searched the whole of LinkedIn, over 930 million people, and I found the best person that can help us get most out of our voice. Nausheen Chen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. I was so excited to be here when you asked me to be on the show because you've had some amazing people on the show, and I have always loved and admired your personal brand. So I love this opportunity to talk to you, and the live is just the cherry on top. Thank you.
Well, I am equally excited because here's the thing, Nausheen. When I first started podcasting, as I shared before the show started, I did it because Michelle Griffin told me I needed one. And I kind of figured if I just got a microphone and hooked up and off I went, everything would sort itself out, which is all great until I had to listen to myself back again and do the editing of the podcast. And then there was a few things that started to stand out, which I will share as we get into this. But tell me, before we start getting all of your secret tips on how we can use our voice as our power for content, how did you get started on LinkedIn and what's your journey been like? Because I feel like yours has been like a rocket ship in the last 12 months. Is that what it's felt like for you?
Only a little. I had been wanting to build my personal brand for years and just didn't understand how to get started. And I was an entrepreneur at the time. That was my first startup. I was a filmmaker and it had consumed my whole life. So I would keep thinking about it and then putting it on the back burner. And then 2021 was my big year of changes where I had this stern talk with myself. I put myself in the shoes of my high school headmistress and told myself, Nausheen, enough is enough. You have no direction in your career. You are a filmmaker right now, but you don't feel like you're a filmmaker. You don't want to be a filmmaker, but you don't know what you actually want. You need to get things in order, Missy. So I listened to the voice and I broke away from the filmmaking world. I started working on my French because I was in China at the time. I wanted to leave China and move to Europe. I started soul searching and head searching and all kinds of searching. And in the middle of all of that, when I was really down, I started realizing that this is the right time to start posting on socials. Not because I was down, but because I have always been the kind of person who talks as they think. So I don't know if you've heard this comparison between introverts and extroverts. Introverts think to speak, but extroverts speak to think. Have you heard that before?
I haven't, but I'm like, that's me.
Right? You think to speak?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, I'm going to flip that. I would say I'm more, my thoughts come out as I speak, like stream of consciousness, whatever's in my mind is what's coming out, which is always makes a podcast a challenge because you want to say everything that's in your mind. And sometimes you got to take a breath, right?
Yeah, of course. So I realized I was one of those people who wouldn't really know what she wants to do unless she puts it out there. I didn't even know the term building in public, but that's what I started doing. I started posting about everything. This was March 2022. I posted about the first French book that I'd read. I posted about my opinions on the latest brand campaign that I had worked on. I posted about how I don't know what I should be doing in life. That post got a lot of likes for the first time. And I said, I don't know if I should be sharing this, but I don't know what I'm doing here. Everyone's like. So that gives you a clue as to what people like. Other lost people like themselves. And because public speaking was one of the things I was passionate about, I started posting about that. It was in the mix and it started getting a lot of great feedback. Around the same time, my husband encouraged me to look into speaking as a way to earn a living. I had just never thought about it before. So the two things happened together last year, exactly about a year ago. And I started talking about public speaking more and more. And that's where I started getting more traction. People started asking me more about how they could work with me. LinkedIn noticed me and gave me some video spotlights, and then eventually asked me to build a course. And that's where just it really snowballed, and I kept going with that. I just ran with that. So that's the LinkedIn journey so far.
So far, I like that you say that because I was thinking about why does it matter that we're talking about voice and content. So if I have a look at it, we can do video content, we can attend a LinkedIn audio room, we can do LinkedIn lives, we can make videos, like we can guest on other people's podcasts, you can have your own podcast. Like there's so many different ways. And then there's also what happens when you meet someone on LinkedIn and you want to have a conversation with them, or maybe even a sales conversation, your voice plays such an important part. And for me, it's almost become like a blueprint for who is this person? What do I know about them? Their energy levels. What do they sound like? Where do they come from? How quick or how slow do they talk? There's so many different ways that we can use it. But before we go into those kind of things, how do you see that voice impacts our perceived authority by others?
It absolutely has an impact. So, what you said is so true. As an outsider, we take people at face value or at voice value. We understand who they are, usually in the first few seconds of having a Zoom call with them or watching a video of them, seeing them on a webinar or a live event. We get a specific vibe from a person. This person is extroverted. This person is expressive. This person is just in themselves and they're not too interested in what I'm talking about, or they're not interested in listening to me. This person might be a little not very confident. They're not thinking, maybe they're not prepared. So everything that we say and put out there has a direct impact on our brand. And that is scary because if you are not being intentional about it, or if you don't have the right tools to express yourself in a way that you want to come across, then you're not doing justice to your own self, your own expertise, your own personality. That's what's really scary. And it's that disconnect that traumatizes people. I have had clients who come to me and say, Nausheen, I did a podcast, I did a presentation, and I got the video, I watched it back, and that was not me. That person speaking was not me. How is that happening? I thought I was okay, but I come across as this strange, unconfident, inarticulate person. Why is that? And they see that disconnect, and that is the first point where they start making a change.
It can be the most awkward feeling in the world in the beginning when I used to literally, just like a sports team that watches replays back to look for ways that you can improve, I would do that with my LinkedIn lives in the early days. And in the beginning, I would be sitting there going, oh, why would anyone want to listen to my voice? Oh my God, I've got an Aussie accent. It felt like everybody else in the world had an American accent or somewhere in the UK. And I was like, I'm the only one with an Aussie accent doing this. I'm going to stand out. No one wants to listen to this. My mum said I had a girly voice when I was younger. My voice doesn't match how I look. You name it, those thoughts went through my mind and then some. And I talk really fast and it was just full of ums and ahs and you knows. That's my filler word, you know. And I thought, oh dear Lord, I'm really good at what I do. I can help people with LinkedIn, I can help people them sell. But if I can't work out how to articulate that on the spot in conversations, it's not that that goes away, but it's just like it takes the shine off, it takes the edge off. And I wanted
Yeah.
to be better. So quite often I have people reach out and, comment on my voice these days, which I think is hilarious. My voice like honey was the latest one. I shared that with you because I was like, is someone really saying that? But what it is just how much I've practiced. And I didn't start out like this. And I always want to share that because I encourage other people to get started. And we're going to talk about what I think is important before we even open our mouth. How do you deal with nerves? What's your tips for the people that are thinking, speaking's great, love to do it, but there's this thing where the nerves just take over?
There's two types of work that you can do to calm your nerves. One is longer term work on your inner confidence, where you ask yourself the hard questions. Why are you getting nervous? Is it fear of judgment? Is it fear of letting people down? Is it fear of not performing, fear of freezing? What is it that is scaring you and causing you to feel nervous? And that's longer term work. Once you identify what it is, then come up with strategies, things like positive self talk, things like understanding that the audience is there for you, not against you. If you win, they win because they have taken time out to come and listen to you, to come and hear you speak. Why would they not want you to do well? If you do well, you impart some kind of information or wisdom that they will walk away with. They absolutely want you to do really well. They're not there judging you unless it's a stand up comedy show. Then there might be some hecklers, and I can't guarantee that there won't be. But if you're
Or
not a
you're at
stand up
Twitter.
comedian or you're on Twitter, my least favorite social media platform. So that's the inner work. It will take weeks, months, or years, depending on where you are and how deep seated those beliefs and fears are. And then there's the easier work, which is developing a warm up routine, or what I call a pre-game ritual, where you create, first of all, you create some time before going live, before going on stage, before doing the presentation. Take just a solid 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be long, but for 5 minutes, stop checking your email, stop looking at your phone, and create a little routine that eases you into the speaking opportunity. There are multiple types of warm ups you can do: physical warm ups, vocal warm ups, voice, which are voice warm ups, and expression warm ups, where you warm up the expressions on your face. Some people dance to their favorite song. Some people meditate. Some people go for a smoke break, if that's what you do. Some people have their favorite smoothie or juice. I wouldn't recommend coffee if coffee gets you even more. Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, but every coffee drinker tells me that I don't really want coffee before I go on. So figure out something nice that you can take to drink and also have it with you. That really helps. So if you take time to develop that routine and refine it over a period of time, it will really help you not go from 0 to 1. So you won't be making this cold open where you were like this on your computer checking your email, and then you're like, hello, because you're just making yourself jump into the deep end right away. So those two techniques really help.
And for anyone listening, here's how I do it for the podcast, because I have been through this. I book my guests 15 minutes earlier. And so we jump on and we have time to mess around with the tech or whatever it happens to be. Make sure that they've got lip gloss on, drinks, you name it. Everybody understands what's going on, because it can be quite stressful. I'll tell you what my pre-game ritual was in the beginning, and it still is pretty much now. Time is the one that I absolutely echo. The more time you give yourself, the less stressed you are, the easier this is. So time, I always don't book myself back to back. The next thing is back away from caffeine and coffee. You do not need anything else. It's going to amp you up. So I'm on that one, absolutely. But here's something else that I do. I have a favorite fragrance that none of you can smell, because this is video or audio, depending how you're catching this. But every time I spray this fragrance, I know I'm going to do a recording, whether it's a guest spot or my own show, but it's part of my I'm going to get ready. In the early days, I watched a YouTube video, and the name escapes me, where you would do the superwoman pose, and it was meant to give you confidence. And at that stage, I was ready to try anything. So I was standing here like a superwoman going, yes, I'm ready for this. I've tried everything, but for me, I would say it's definitely time. Just relax beforehand and just trust in the process. So yeah, I'm totally on board with all of those options. Anything else that you would add that's popped into your mind while I was talking?
I love the perfume idea. Anything that puts you in the mood. It reminded me of someone who was a high achiever, and they were motivating me to go to the gym. And this guy said, all I do to get into the mood and to tell myself I'm going to go to the gym is I have a very particular gym hat. So I take that out of my closet and I put it on, and I tell myself, now I've put on the hat. I just have to go to the gym now. It's on me. There's no point in backing out. So simple. It's these simple things that you can really use to trick your brain. the more you do it, the more productive and satisfying your life will get, because those are things that you really want to do. You really want to be at ease when you speak. No one wants to be nervous, but you just don't know what's going to get you there. So spending time to figure out what's going to get you there is absolutely worth it.
I think the only other thing that I would add that I do probably differently now to what I did back in the beginning when I was so worried about what I'd look like, what I sounded like, what I was coming out of my mouth, was I smart enough, all those million questions that were going through my mind. Now I go, who am I out to help and how will this help them? And then that gets me out of the noise in my own head and gets me into, oh, wow, I'm just coming here to talk to Nausheen to help more people. Why wouldn't I want to have this conversation? And away I go. And that has been a game changer for me as well. My friend Gillian Whitney, she says, sometimes you can put a post-it note up near the video and just put a smiley face or your favorite customer's name or something like that. But it just switches you out of your own brain, which it's not self-serving most days.
That's another great one. If you're recording videos by yourself, even seasoned speakers that are used to being on stage really hate that experience because they're used to people reacting to them, and they can play off of that, or they know if a joke landed or if what they're saying actually is registering with people because they can read faces. But if there are no faces to read, that is just you and a black hole or a green light. So, whatever you can come up with to put yourself in that zone where it's as if you're having a face to face conversation with someone, it would really help.
And if anyone that's listening in has got other tips that you'd love to add to this, throw them in the comments so that we can share that with the community, because I love that there's all kinds of different ideas and different ways that we go around this. And you've got to find your own routine, because for some of you might be listening to this thinking, that all sounds a bit crazy. I'd rather go and do X. Tell us what that might be. You might inspire somebody else who's thinking about doing some content. I know somebody that's joined us that I was talking to yesterday. And Tracy, I'm going to call you out because it's my first conversation I'd had with Tracy. And I immediately commented on her voice, not intentionally, it was just what came out, because I was like, you're so calming. I didn't realize I'd been following her content for a long time and really liked it, but it just added another dimension to her. So these are the kinds of things I'm hoping to inspire more people that have such brilliant messages to get out there. And that applies to everybody that's joining us today. There might be some people, Nausheen, that are sitting here going, you've got your fancy microphone. Michelle's got her fancy microphone and headphones. How much does equipment play when we're talking about spoken content? Does it have an impact? Can it help us? Can it hinder us without equipment? Where do you sit on this one?
It really depends on the kind of content you want to make. But what I always tell people is don't let your idea of the ideal equipment stand in the way of you creating content. I've had clients who started creating with literally just their phones, because the idea is to get into the swing of it, get into the habit of creating that content. It's just like LinkedIn. Don't let the idea of that viral post stop you from writing at all. If all of us were only looking for viral posts, very few of us would actually be on the platform, which would be so sad. Exactly the same thing. Get into the habit first, figure out the bare basics. The bare minimum is just having a phone, and most phones today are better than your webcam. So if you want to use your webcam, use your phone instead. Get a little tiny stand for your phone so it can stand. Figure out if you want to make videos in landscape or portrait mode. And if you can, get a small collar mic. The reason why I say this is because audio is largely neglected, and people forget that audio is 50% of the experience. When I was a filmmaker, this was the first thing they taught us. They said, people think film is a visual medium. It's absolutely not true. Film is a visual and an audio medium. If you go into a cinema, they actually did this experiment I want to tell you about real quick. They did this experiment where they had a bunch of people go into the cinema and watch a film with bad visuals, like fuzzy, blurry visuals and great audio. And then they did a similar experiment with Group B, who watched the same film with amazing, clear 4K visuals and bad audio, like. And guess from which one of those people stayed the longest and fewer people walked out?
Well, it's obvious the one that you can actually listen to.
Yes.
Yeah.
The picture was fuzzy, it was blurry, but people could hear the audio and they stayed longer. But if it was bad audio, people walked out. We don't realize that. So if you're filming with your phone, if you are maybe that close, it's probably okay. If you're that far away, if
So
you're
maybe an
that far
arm's
away,
length.
it depends on what your arm, what position your arm is in.
So if you hold
About
your arm away from you, it's too far.
you're too far because what happens is you have the mic in the phone and the mic in the phone isn't bad, but you know what it's designed for is designed for this kind of speaking. So if you're doing that, great. But if you're not, get a little mic, and these mics are not expensive. So that was my whole spiel about audio because it really belongs there. And you don't need to worry about much else when you first get started. Build your little podcast house brick by brick. Once you're comfortable with that, add in a light or two, add in a backdrop if you want. Figure out if you want to upgrade your headphones, figure out if you want to upgrade your mic. But don't just start with the fancy camera or the fancy mic if you're not even in the habit of creating that content because you don't want it to sit in a corner and gather cobwebs.
You can see my very first video on LinkedIn thanks to the latest changes to the activity layout. So you can see what I started with. My laptop was on a box. I had a $15 ring lights. That was about it. I actually tried that one on my iPhone and I had those weird eyes trying to look at the camera, but I was looking at the center. So it looks a bit weird. But if I didn't make that first one and put it out there, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I want to encourage people as you're listening to this, these tips are brilliant. These tips are what does make a difference. And they're such simple things. And the tips that Nausheen is giving you are actually free for the most part. If you go and implement these things, they're not going to cost you anything. And I never want equipment to get in the way of people sharing their voice and their messages. So I really appreciate you putting it out there. Yes, it can make a difference. My microphone right now, if anyone wants to know, is like $100 microphone. It's not anything fancy or expensive, but it does the job. And it's why people are here now. It's never gotten in the way. And so I really appreciate you sharing the other tips that we need to focus on and not have that equipment block. Because I think it becomes about the equipment. It's probably
Yeah.
nothing to do with the equipment, right?
No, it obviously helps if you have what people perceive as more professional quality. It does help eventually. But to be honest, clients get leads when they create videos on their phone talking about their expertise. It's about how you're coming across, and your presence will shine through, even if it's a video that you made on the fly.
That's why they invented TikTok, right? And the popularity of that is it's not polished, it's not highly
Yeah.
produced, it is more in the moment and it's raw and authentic. And I think that transparency is what people relate to. But I reckon probably the next question that you get asked a lot is how do we stop the filler words, the ums, the ahs? For me, it's so. I say so a lot. A lot. And yeah, there's a few ahs and ums like everybody else. But can I stop it? What is the secret? I want to level up.
You can absolutely stop it. You can absolutely get rid of the filler words basically forever. There is a 3-step process that usually works. So, step 1 is something you've already accomplished, which is becoming aware of which filler words you're using and when. The best way to do that is by recording yourself speaking naturally on a subject of your choice, something that you can talk about very easily for a minute or two, and then watch it back, hear it back, and identify where you're using the filler words at what points. Is it usually towards the beginning of sentences? Is it towards the end? Is it in the middle when you're searching for a thought? Is it all three? Could be all three. What kind of filler words are you using? Very important to start becoming aware of what are those crutch words that you always go to. And the second step is the most difficult one, which is becoming aware of using the filler words as you're speaking. This is the one step that most people resist because it really feels unnatural at first. I've had clients tell me, Nausheen, if I'm thinking about my filler words, I can't actually think about what I'm going to be saying. this defeats the purpose. Yeah, in the short term, because you're going through an extra mental process. You're giving your brain more things to do, not just articulate your thoughts, but also think about how you're articulating the thoughts. But guess what? If you can go through step 2, you'll emerge a much stronger speaker, because step 3 is the easy part. Step 3 is, now that you're aware of what you're saying, you're aware of a filler word coming on, you've become more mindful, just pause instead. Stop yourself from saying the filler word. You feel it coming on and just catch it.
Can we play filler word bingo with the audience?
That would be a fun game.
So every time I say, we're going to have send me a like. Here's the thing. If I was to assess what I do, it's when I'm forming my thoughts, just like that. So I try to avoid it. And then there's that silence that I think in my mind, I'm like, what if they think, what if they know that I'm just thinking about something? This is what's going on in my brain. And it's when we get stuck in our own brains again, where I'm not thinking, there are people in this audience, don't mind if I take a pause. They don't care. It's my own judgment of me that gets in the way. Any other tips? It's just a lot of practice. Is that what I'm hearing mostly?
Intentional practice. That's the one thing I want people to walk away with. If you just practice without being intentional about it, which means without watching it back, without getting guidance, some kind of objective perspective on how you're speaking, even if it's just showing it to your partner. If you're doing it without those two things, you might be practicing in the bad habits. So it's never just practice, it's intentional, strategic practice, which has a feedback loop built in, and that absolutely helps.
Brilliant. I am going to try that. I'm going to take that on and I'm going to see if I can reduce the number of filler words as a starting point, and then we'll work to they're gone. And I'm not talking about the magic button in Descript to edit where you just remove them all. That's a whole other kettle of fish and we love that, but I would love to do it without that, because what happens when I'm on a stage and there is no magic button anymore? So this is why I'm driven to try and be better, because my plan is to get out in front of more people. So it's all an evolution. There's talking, there's putting content out there, but why are we bothering to sound engaging and trustworthy? How does the voice play into this piece of the puzzle when we're creating content?
Very literally speaking, your voice plays into the puzzle, because if your voice is monotonous, you could be talking about the cure for cancer and people will not listen to you. This is why a lot of good speakers actually get a bad rap, because a lot of people know how to speak. And some of those people don't have much to say, but they go ahead and speak anyway. And people listen. And when they listen, they realize, oh, I don't think this person deserved my time, but they drew me in. So that's proof of the fact that your voice, your energy, the way you're engaging people, the way you're connecting with them absolutely matters, even if you don't have something to say, which is, of course, not what we're prescribing. Of course, we want you to have that magic formula where you have something really important to say and the best way to express it. But I really want to show you those two ends of the spectrum. And I actually did some video experiments around this where I showed people how, if you're in an airplane, for example, you would notice that these airline companies are taking the safety announcements more and more seriously. They add song and dance into it. They make the airline staff dress up in the videos that they show you. Sometimes they have elaborate narratives and 3D effects and animations. Why? Because they know that even if this information can save your life, you will not listen to it if it's delivered like this in a monotone by someone who could just not care that you're there. So there it is. You can have the most important thing to say, but if you don't work on making it entertaining, interesting, and appealing to the audience, they're not going to listen to you.
And there's some really amazing thought leaders on LinkedIn and beyond that have these amazing messages that need to reach more people. And I would hate for it to be their voice and how they come across as the thing that turns people away. So it is a skill to be practiced. How does your voice break trust? What kind of things can people avoid doing so that they can come across as trustworthy?
Creating that engagement and interaction actually builds trust because people don't trust people that don't care about them. If you are delivering a presentation, if you are doing a video and you're always just looking there or looking down, not really interested in the audience, they're not going to feel interested in you. They're not going to build that rapport with you. So, making it interesting, making the audience the centerpiece and working backwards from there, that's the best way to build trust and credibility. And then, of course, there are things like vocabulary, speaking mannerisms. There are certain things that I point out to my clients after I've seen them speak for a while, and we work on those specific mannerisms that could be undermining their authority. For example, some people are in the habit of saying, "Does that make sense?" at the end of almost everything they say or every second thing they say. Sure, asking it once in a while is perfectly fine. But if you're asking it all the time, that means you're not sure if you're making sense. A lot of other people have a habit of ending their sentences on an upward inflection, and it sounds like you're asking a question. Or they add the word right, right? Like I said, sometimes it's perfectly fine. It's when it's every single sentence or every other sentence, that's when you start feeling, oh, so this person just needs approval all the time. They're just not sure of what they're saying. They're not sure of their message. So, of course, you're not going to associate that person with being credible or authoritative, unfortunately.
There's so many ways that this plays out, but I'm hoping that as people are listening to this, they're making mental notes of it's lots of little things that are completely in our control that we can take charge of. And if you're not following Nausheen on LinkedIn as yet, all of her details are going to be in the show notes so that you can do it, because you're going to go to her profile, top right hand corner, you're going to find the bell, you're going to ring that bell so you stay up to date with all of her amazing content that comes out daily pretty much, and will give you even more tips. Nausheen, I'm going to stretch the friendship and ask you, if you were to leave people with one tip for how they can speak as a leader and create amazing content with their voice as their power, what tip would you leave them?
You don't need anyone's permission. For the longest time, I hesitated building my personal brand, being more visible on LinkedIn, because I thought I needed to achieve something before I started speaking about it. I needed to get to this level of success before I could brag about it or show others how to achieve it. This is absolutely not true. It's a way for you to procrastinate. If you are someone who's not creating content or not creating the next level of content. Maybe you're writing on LinkedIn, but you want to create more videos, more podcasts, and you're just waiting for the right moment. There is no right moment. I started building my brand at 39, and I wish I had started at 29. Because imagine where I would be. It's just about figuring out that what you have done so far, whether you're 22, 32, 42, or 62, if what you've done so far in life absolutely deserves to be seen and heard. So don't wait for anyone to tell you. Now, Nausheen, it's okay if you start writing on LinkedIn, or it's okay if you start creating videos. Just start doing it. Do it scared, do it with the imposter syndrome, and it will get better.
I can only agree with that. And if anybody is listening to this and you want permission from somebody else, then you now have our official permission. So
Yes.
that is about as much permission that you need, and you now have it. So I expect to be tagged in some posts where people give this a go. It can be a 30-second video, jump on and live. LinkedIn audio is a great place to play. Nobody records it. But Nausheen, I want to say thank you so much for making time available to share so many brilliant tips that I hope people go back, listen to the replay, make themselves a list of things that they can just start ticking off that they can get better. Because you know what? When ChatGPT comes and all of this AI generative content, guess what they can't do? Your voice. They can't make your videos. There is some videos that can be made with your voice. I know we've got someone here that will say, but there's synesthesia. But there are things that I want you to realize that this is your way to stand out from everyone else. And maybe what you think that others don't like about your voice, turns out they really like it. And so for everybody that listens to this podcast and encourages me to keep going, I appreciate all of you just as much. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And until next week, I hope you all have fun.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for this. This was awesome.
It was. Cheers.